Hey guys, welcome back for another episode of The Suited Shootist. It's cold in Texas again, and as such, I'm kind of breaking out some of the cozier fabrics, chambray, corduroy, some of the more wintry feels. So wanted to jump in real quick, and I think this is going to be a good topic right before Christmas, because as you start getting people together from various social circles, this is definitely relevant. And what I'm talking about is whether it's about how you dress, how well you conceal, or whether you are carrying a firearm or not. Invariably, you're going to get the comments, or somebody's going to chime up with, oh, well, it shouldn't matter, or I don't have to explain myself, or some variation thereof. And I really think that does us a disservice. Here's why. It all boils down to social fluency and social friction. Starting with how you choose to dress. If I'm going to go into, a fine dining restaurant, I'm going to get treated differently if I walk in like this, well groomed, or if I walk in ripped up jeans, beat up tennis shoes, and all scraggly and unkempt. My money spends the same either way, but how we choose to interact with the world dictates how the world chooses to interact with us. And the reality is that visuals are generally the first impression that you set that will then dictate how receptive people are to everything beyond that. Now, I'm not saying that you got to walk around in a jacket and tie, but as long as your clothes fit well, are good colors on you, and are appropriate for your age, that's really all it takes. It's a little bit of care and a little bit of effort. And that's the challenge. I think that a lot of this resistance comes from the fact that people don't want to do that work. And it's true even outside of the wardrobe, because when it comes to, you hear people dismiss all the time, oh, well, printing doesn't matter, people don't pay attention, yada, 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 yada. And frankly, that's bullshit for two reasons. Number one, the people who have their faces buried in their phones and are walking around in a bubble of oblivion are not why I, and likely not why you, choose to carry a firearm. And just like how the little game of go to the mall and spot the gun carriers is fun for concealed carriers to play, well, guess what? The predators play that game too, and typically they're a hell of a lot better at it than we are, because the stakes for them are way higher. And even beyond that, on the social friction side of the equation, you can find yourself in a circumstance where you may need to excuse yourself to readjust a piece of gear that isn't quite where you want it, or try and address some printing, or the plans of the day may take you somewhere that you weren't planning to go, and now you have to divest yourself of a firearm that you weren't planning to. And having some kind of just innocuous justification for that preloaded is a whole lot better than, hey, where are you going? How about you mind your fucking business? Because that's an overreaction. And having such an extreme response to such a nominal inquiry is going to be more memorable and is going to raise more questions than, oh, okay, he's a bonehead, he forgot to lock the car, whatever. And being able to navigate those circumstances and intentionally reducing the probability of social friction is critical, because going back to the printing side of the equation, this was a conversation I actually had with a friend of mine on the Patreon live stream that we do. And he was kind of giving us some insights kind of from the other side of the tracks, as it were. The gist of it is that a lot more people notice guns than care that people are carrying guns. And that's, I think, what a lot of folks miss, because I can't control whether or not the person that spots me carrying cares or not. All I can do is control how easy or difficult it is for them to spot it in the first place. And so when we go into, whether it's going to be work, Christmas parties, social gatherings with friends, family, etc., if you're anything like me, not everyone in the circle is necessarily going to be about that life, at least not to the same degree. And so it's important to be able to navigate that and tailor the facet that's being, put forward. So that way you're not playing a role, you're not being inauthentic, but, the version of myself that you saw at the ShivWorks class over the weekend is going to be a little bit different than the version that people see when I go to my wife's office Christmas party. So they're both still genuinely me. They're just slightly different because they're tailored to the audience. And so that's what I wanted to touch on is this is all based around the late Dr. William Aprill liked to say, the world is not as it should be. The world is as it is. And for him, it was primarily geared around, criminal predation and violent criminal actors and target selection and things like that. But it applies to this too. No, people shouldn't care that I carry a gun. No, people shouldn't pass judgment on me based on how I dress. But that don't make it so. So my ability to maintain as much control of those things as possible gives me the power so that way I am not at the mercy of somebody else. And obviously, these are not mostly life and death type circumstances, but there are a whole lot of social and professional outcomes that can make life easier or more difficult or just more or less aggravating. And sometimes that's all it takes to be worth it. So exercise some of that social fluency this week. And outside of that, hope everybody has a Merry Christmas. Have a fantastic week. Stay dangerous and stay sharp.